Okay, so today we're going to be learning about using the cosine rule to find angles. We obviously dealt with the cosine rule for sides last lesson. And when we're using it to find angles, we get it in this form here. How does it get in that form there? Well, if we take the form of the cosine rule that we were used to last lesson, that would have said that c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos c. Okay, so if we were to rearrange this so we could find out what the angle is, and where's the angle? Well, the angle is just in here in this cos c section. That's where our angle is. So we want to get everything else on the other side. So if I take away a squared and b squared from both sides, I'm going to end up with c squared minus a squared minus b squared equals minus 2ab cos c. The next thing I'd like to do then is divide both sides by negative 2ab. Because that'll cancel that out and we'll be just left with cos c on this side, but obviously I've got to do the same to both sides. So I'm going to end up with, I'm just going to switch sides here, and I'm going to say cos c equals c squared minus a squared minus b squared on negative 2ab. Now, mathematicians, we don't really like negatives in the denominator, so what we could do is we could instead put that negative into the numerator. So essentially what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come along and I'm going to go, well, I'm going to put that negative through there. Whoop. I'm going to put that negative through there, that way I can cross this one out and get rid of it. So if I do that, I'm going to be left with, and I'll change the order around, negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. So I'm going to put those two positive ones first, a squared plus b squared minus c squared over 2ab. That equals cos c. So that's how that formula has come out. It's just the usual cosine rule for finding sides. We just rearranged it. Now, really important with this, generally what you're going to do is you'll kind of calculate the right-hand side. So you're going to calculate all of that and then get an answer in your calculator and use that answer key to get back to cos c. Okay, I'll show how that happens in this first example. But what this rule does do, what the cosine rule does for us, is that if we've got any triangle where we know all three distances but we don't know any angles, the cosine rule will always work. So in order to use the cosine rule to find an angle, you need to know all of the lengths but none of the angles, and it'll find one of the angles for you. And obviously then you can either use the sine rule or the cosine rule to find further angles of that triangle. So if we look at this particular example here, if this is my angle C, then that must be my side C, that must be my side A, it's opposite angle A, and this must be my side B. So I just take that formula that's written there, cos c equals a squared plus b squared minus c squared on 2ab, and I'm just going to substitute in all my values. So a squared is going to be 4.47 squared, b squared is going to be 3.61 squared, c squared is going to be 6.08 squared, not 6.8, 6.08. And that's all going to be divided by 2 times what's A, 4.47, and what's B, 3.61. So at this point, we plug that all into our calculator. All right, don't try to do anything funky with it from here. Let's just get that in the calculator. So we create a fraction, and we're going to go 4.47 squared. Just having a bit of trouble with my mouse here. Oh, let's see if I can sort something out with that. No, it looks like I'm not going to be able to. Plus 3.61 squared minus 6.08 squared, and that's going to be over 2 times by 4.47 times by 3.61. Okay, so at this point I just press equals, and that's going to give me something that's rather nonsensical. I could write it down. I could say cos c equals, I think it was negative 0.122, something like that. What was that on the calculator there? Yep, something like that. And now the really important part is don't key in that, don't write it down and then key it in. Use that answer key button. So I go Shift cos to find an angle, and I press the answer key to bring up my last answer, and that's going to give me 97 degrees. So the nearest degree, that's going to be 97 degrees. Okay. And I've just changed pages somehow. Let's just go forward. There we go. Rightio, so that's the basic process, but just make sure you use that answer key in your calculator to make that last step clean. All right, so our next question wants the answer to the nearest minute, but once again, we're going to use that same formula. So we want to find the angle, give the size of angle PQM. So that's the angle we're interested in there. That's going to be our C, which means that's going to be our side C. And it doesn't really matter which ones we call the A and the B, as long as we know which one the side C is, much like the normal cosine rule. So we say cos C equals A squared. Gosh, I can't remember my formula. A squared plus B squared minus C squared. Over 2AB. So we factor, we put all those values in. So 5.03 squared plus B is 6.03, 6.03 squared minus 2.61 squared, all over 2 times by 5.03 times by 6.03. And I put that in my calculator. .03 squared plus 6.03 squared minus 2.61 squared, all over 2 times by 5.03 times by 6.03. I get 0.904. So obviously C is going to equal cos to the minus 1 of 0.904 ... whatever we put in the calculator. And once again, really important you use that answer key here. So shift cos is going to help me find an angle. Answer is what I want to key in. And I press equals, and I'm going to get 25 degrees, 0.28, but I needed the answer to the nearest minute. So in this case, that's going to be 25 degrees, 17 minutes. And that's how we do that one. Okay, so I'm going to skip the next one there. I'll leave that on Ed Rollo as an activity for you. But remembering, of course, angle ABC is going to be this angle in here. That's the angle I want to calculate. So effectively, this is going to be my... Yeah, it's a bit confusing because, of course, it's not angle C. So there's two ways you could go about this. You could either rename it, or you could say that we could use the formula in the form of cos B equals A squared plus C squared minus B squared on 2AC. So you can see I've just changed the order around to suit the fact that we're using it for the angle B. Or either that, or you can change the letters there. So it's important that you understand that the formula works for a triangle ABC where you're trying to find angle C. So if we've got a triangle ABC, we're trying to find angle B, we've got to rearrange it a little bit, or we've got to rename the angles, I guess, for the formula. So have a crack at that one, but just make sure you know it is which angle that you're trying to find. Okay, so we're now going to get into some more practical situations. So we've got these three distances between Charleville, Augathella and Morven. Morven is due east of Charleville, so we know that that's 90 degrees in there. And we need to find the angle marked theta, and then we can find the bearing of Charleville to Augathella. So this is our angle C. So we start off by just going, well, in this triangle here, and I'll show you how this works. So cos C equals, in this case, it's going to be A squared plus M squared, because of course that's side M, minus C squared over 2AM. You can see how I've just amended the formula to allow for the names of the letters, but it's still in the same format. The negative up the top has to coincide with the angle we're finding. So as long as you've got that right, and then obviously these two have to be the two that are down here. All right, that's the pattern of the formula. So if we stick with that, we'll be fine. So in this case, we've got A is A. So this is our A here. This is our C, and this is our M. These are the sides opposite each of those angles. So we're going to have 89 squared plus 70 squared minus 75 squared, all over 2 times 89 times 70. And we'll key that into our calculator. Minus 75 squared, all over 2 times 89 times 70. And we're going to end up, it's going to give us a, I'd rather it as a decimal. So we're going to end up with 0.577 ... whatever that is. So C is going to equal cos to the minus 1 of 0.577, whatever that is. And once again, using that answer key, so we go shift cos answer, and that'll give us our answer, which is 54 degrees 70.72 to the nearest degree, so that's going to be 55 degrees. Now that's not the final answer, of course, so that's the answer to part A. Part B is to find the bearing. For the bearing, we need to, if we call this little angle in here our x, I'll say let bearing be x. Okay, so x is going to equal 90 degrees minus 55 degrees, which is 45 degrees, but of course, not 45 degrees, sorry, that's not right, 35 degrees. But of course, bearings are displayed in 3 digits, so we can say therefore the bearing is 0.35 degrees. Unless it was asked after a compass bearing, was it after a compass or a true bearing? Just says the bearing, so we'll go with the true bearing in this case. And that's how we do that question. I've probably got enough time to get through this one. So the 5th green at Palm Tree Cove Golf Course is a huge green completely surrounded by water. The distance from the tee to the hole is 140 metres. We've got that there. Jeff hits his shot 140 metres. That's where it's gone, but it's gone into the water. And it landed 20 metres to the right of the hole. So that's the bit that's missing off our diagram. We need to know that that's 20 metres. And we want to know the size of this, angle here. So we just use that basic form of cos C equals A squared plus B squared minus C squared over 2AB. Now in this case, C is the going to be here. That's our angle. That's opposite our angle that we're interested in. And so these are going to be our A's and our B's on this side. So as we put that into our calculator, we're going to have 140 squared plus 140 squared minus 20 squared over 2 times 140 times 140. And we plug that all into our calculator. We're going to end up with, so 140 squared plus 140 squared minus 20 squared divided by 2 times by 140 times by 140. And there we have all of that. That's going to give us, I'll leave it as 97 on 98. That's okay. So 97 on 98. So therefore C is going to equal cos to the minus 1 of 97 on 98. And once again, we use that answer key. So shift cos answer, close our brackets, is going to give us our response. Now, I'll just check in our question. Doesn't say how big we want the angle to be. Let's give it into the nearest minute. So 31 seconds is going to round up. So we're going to end up with 8 degrees, 12 minutes. That degree sign's a little bit big. I might make it a bit smaller. So 8 degrees, 12 minutes. Okay, and that's the end of today's lesson.